Hi, my name's Phil. I like to discuss politics, and the third in this particular series, and expected to be the final because I think I'll have covered pretty much all of them by then, will be the dumb things Brexiteers say in terms of the arguments for leaving the EU that you just really don't hold up any water at all. So if we kick off, first of all, with, I suppose this would be number 7, but it is, but it costs so much to buy a home now. You know, before we joined the EEC, you know, I could go out with a tenner and get some fish and chips and buy a house as well. Yes, as a proportion of our average wages, houses were a lot cheaper then. It was a lot easier to be able to afford a house. Now it is incredibly difficult. However, if you're going to say that is down to, or indeed anything is down to joining the EU, you have to be able to demonstrate two things. First of all, that this is common for countries within the EU. And second of all, that it is very uncommon for countries outside of the EU. If you can't do both of those things, then it is a completely spurious link. And indeed we can, because not only is this a common feature of developed countries, whether they are in the EU or outside of the EU, it is just with the passage of time, we've, particularly capitalist countries, have tended to make sure that most of the money gets drained into the accounts of very wealthy people who do nothing with it, doesn't get fed back into the economy. So therefore wages are suppressed, and we can observe this in developed countries going back to round about the time we joined the EU and a little bit before. Wages have been suppressed through the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the noughties, and now. The second thing is coming to the idea of, well, is this common throughout the EU? No, it's not. We've actually got we have pretty much got the lowest home ownership of any country within the EU. The only one that's got a lower level of home ownership actually is Germany. In fact, if you look at Germany, France and Britain as the chief economies within the EU, we are the ones with the lowest home ownership. When you look at other countries within the EU, most of them have got very high home ownership. In other words, they have been building enough homes. I mean, that's the key thing. It's supply and demand. So one, wages kept very low in our country, and we haven't been building enough houses. They're now trying to ramp it up, but the bottom line is you can't, because we don't have enough builders. This is why builders are trying to cut corners, and why we end up with people moving into new homes that are not fit for living in, because they've been skimping on the mortar, putting too much sand in, not enough cement, so those houses are now cracking, falling down. And it's a consequence over multiple governments, not just the current one, not building enough houses. So therefore the supply isn't large enough. And in terms of demand, if people's wages are suppressed, obviously you've got a whole range of people who have zero hope of ever being able to own a home. So yeah, you'd have to be able to prove that this is a common feature in the EU, and it isn't. And you'd have to be able to prove that it is not a common feature of similar countries with similar economies outside of the EU. But it is a similar feature of developed countries with high economies. On to the next one. So the next one is people sort of saying, but the parties promised to implement the result of the referendum in the following parliament. They did and they didn't. There are two aspects of this. The first of which is, if there's another referendum, then they will be implementing that referendum, because that's the latest one. You always go with your latest vote. After all, I would be delighted if the last general election had returned the same results we got in 1997, but they didn't. We got the latest results. But the other thing is that people are either deliberately or mistakenly misrepresenting what a manifesto is. It's a list of intentions for government policy. Yes, any government that gets itself a majority should be implementing the things in its manifesto. Quite a lot of the times they don't. Certainly the current government can't, because it's a minority government. So in a situation like that, you're going to have to sort of compromise. You won't be able to get everything through. But the thing to note is it's decided by the party leadership. Not all of the MPs will agree with it, and not all of the MPs will campaign on that basis. You know, some of them, indeed, in various parties have campaigned specifically on the basis of saying that they don't agree with some aspect of the manifesto, because our MPs are supposed to represent, first and foremost, the constituents, the people who voted for them, as well as the people who voted for some other bugger but live in the same constituency. That being said, if you look at what the actual manifestos say, Labour promised to keep us in the single market and the customs union. That is what they said their policy was. They didn't say that they promised to implement the result of the referendum anywhere in the manifesto. The only line relating to the manifesto directly was that they accept the result. Now, you can take that to mean that they will vote in favour of what is necessary to remove us from the EU, if you like. Fine, that's okay. But what they very positively said in the same paragraph was, we are going to fight to stay in the single market and stay in the customs union. The Liberal Democrats did not promise to respect the result of that vote at all. In fact, they promised to put a final vote to the people on the terms of Brexit. The SNP, unsurprisingly, mentioned the word referendum a number of times in their manifesto, but in every single case it was related to the Scottish referendum and not the Brexit referendum. Only the Conservative manifesto said that it would positively ensure that we moved out of the EU. That's the only one that did, and the only one that said that it would accept a no deal if necessary. No other manifesto did. Now, if you're going to beef with the Conservative leadership for not following through on that, that's entirely up to you. But no other party promised to do that. But like I said, regardless of what any manifesto does, individual candidates for Parliament, we know that they toe the party line, and we know that a lot of people vote for them based on their party, not on them. But that is their choice. It's the choice of that candidate. Of course, they can't, well, actually, I was going to say they can't keep going voting against their own party, but actually Jeremy Corbyn did. He's very famous for doing that almost all the time. But generally speaking, you shouldn't, because you get a benefit from being in a party, and that benefit is you are going to attract a load of votes of people voting not for you, but voting for your party. So there's a certain loyalty to your party, of course. But at the same time, parliamentary democracy works on this basis. You vote for the candidate that most agrees with your policies, and they will fight to put those policies in place as best they can to represent that constituency. And that's the bottom line. And the fact is that we voted an overwhelmingly pro-EU parliament, as indeed we had to do. You don't have enough sensible candidates representing Brexit, because anyone who understands what Brexit actually means, it would look at it and go, no. The next one was, well, at least we'll get our fish back. So everyone has this idea that we're going to be exclusively fishing our own waters, because we're going to say to all those EU fishing nations, no, you're not allowed to fish in our waters. Okay, fine. But there are two aspects to this, which again, people are forgetting. One of which is the Scottish Parliament is already trying to force another Scottish referendum, of course spearheaded by the SNP, but they are a major party within Scotland, in fact, the major party within Scottish politics. Now, of course, the Scottish Parliament cannot enact another referendum. Westminster has to do that. They don't have the power to do it, but they're keeping up the pressure for it. At some point, it might well be reasoned, particularly if the people of Scotland really rose up over this, and not in a Braveheart way, you know what I mean, and insisted on it, that Westminster would have to accept that and put another referendum in place. In which, and if there was that pressure on them, you've got to think that there'd be a reason for it. And this time, of course, it could well be that Scotland declare independence. Now, whether or not you think that that's a sensible thing to do, and I personally don't, but that's another issue. If it happens, then an awful lot of those so-called fishing waters, well, they would be Scotland's, not England. So they would disappear anyway. The breakup of the union would mean that we don't get as much. The other thing is, of course, that one, it's impossible to make a trade deal with the EU without accepting that EU countries will get access to those waters. So it won't carry on for long, because we cannot live without a trade deal or any sort of agreement without the EU. But remember, the EU countries will all decide that together, and the EU represents its members. Several of those members are fishing members, and they will absolutely veto, and not literally, because not necessarily they all have a veto, but they will absolutely kick up a fuss and say no trade agreement unless, as part of that agreement, they agree to let us fish in those waters. So that's what will happen. And the other thing is, it's not even a case of, in this case, the fishing industry going, well, sod it, we're not going to allow that, because never mind that it stuffs over the rest of the British economy. We want to fish exclusively. They're not going to be able to do anything with those fish. The fishermen are unlikely even to be able to sell as much fish as they do now sharing those waters. They're certainly, if they were to increase the amount of fish, you're not going to be able to sell the extra. They're not going to sell extra to us because the British public are not going to buy more fish. We're not going to support an industry that's suppressing the rest of our industries. And second of all, they're not going to be able to sell as much fish overseas. Two reasons. One, just socially, it might well be, you know how certain things in shops, if it's got a certain mark on it, we'd go, oh no, we're not going to buy that, you know, ethical reasons, all that sort of stuff. You might well find that people in the EU don't want to buy British fish. The consumers make that decision because, you know, if that becomes a sticking point to a trade deal, they're going to see them in a poor light as well. But secondly, they're going to have like a 10% tariff slapped on them. They're going to be more expensive. So they're going to be less competitive in those foreign markets. So we're not going to sell as many of them. So that's a complete nonsense as well, you know. And then the final couple of things. Now, this is something rather than a specific complaint. This is the thing that I find the most awkward. Like if you just had people saying, oh no, I don't believe these predictions, I think we'd be fine. That's one thing. And also if you have people voting Leave for political reasons, well, okay, I understand that the politics of trading blocs and the politics of the EU may be something that individual people are opposed to. That's absolutely fine. I totally understand that. You know, and there are plenty of people who want to leave, but they understand the economic situation. They understand we're not going to do any better out of it. They also understand that we're going to do significantly worse for at least a period of time. Who knows, in 50 years' time, but certainly for the foreseeable future, for the next generation, we're in tough times. And that's okay, I get that. But when and you can have some people, as I say, who misunderstand certain things. They've been lied to, they still accept those lies. Obviously, their perception's different as well. Okay. Where you've got someone who tries to argue for leaving and then they tell a lie, a deliberate lie, you know that they're on shaky ground. In other words, why would you need to lie to present a case? So I've had a few comments recently, quite spectacular ones, of people say, I mean, the most spectacular, do you know where I had the most vitriol? Was on the video I did yesterday on what the WTO terms mean to us if we exit without a no deal. And that was essentially a factual video. You know, there was very little discussion in it. I always discuss things, but there was very little discussion in it. There was no real opinion on it, apart from me wondering what political decisions would be made, because they're fairly unpredictable. But I tried to present the different ones. But the actual facts in it were the ones people had a problem with. And they're all verifiable, because this is the thing. Some people will get their facts from newspaper. A newspaper will say a thing and they go, oh, it must be true. No, you always go to the source. So if I'm getting and people have asked me, oh, where have I got certain things from? You know, if I'm talking about an EU treaty or a piece of legislation, I'll go to the EU. They have it on their website. You can download whatever you want, including the Lisbon Treaty, which is going to be important in a moment. If it's on WTO rules, where do I go? The World Trade Organization website, because that has all its articles as well. You can look through those. You know, if it's a piece of British legislation, where do I go? The British government website. You know, when you want these documents, you go to the source. You don't just go to someone that quotes them, because how do you know they have? And I had some people do this. So first of all, someone was saying, God, what was it about? Some article in the Lisbon Treaty that means we have to accept the euro. It says, oh, you know, if we stayed in there, we would have to adopt the euro. And I know that was untrue, but when someone just says that, you say, so what you did and what I did is I said, so, okay, which article does it say that in? And they go, oh, you could just look it up yourself. And I had to make the case, no. I'm not going to read through 300 articles, or roughly 300, in order to try and find something that I don't believe exists. Do you know how long it would take me to read through that? You tell me where it says it in there. And eventually they went, oh, and they gave the name of the article, the number of the article. Can't remember which one it was now. So I looked at it, of course. It's always nice when people quote these things, so you can quite easily look at it and looked at it and go, doesn't say that at all. But that's maybe the attempt they're doing to try and convince people. They don't just say a thing. They say a thing and quote a treaty in an article, which exists. And so it says in here, thinking and probably knowing that the vast majority of people don't follow it up. And I think this is the reason. Now, when I say this, you're going to get a load of people getting their backs up, because I had someone say this before about, oh, you just think you're better than me. No, when I say what I'm about to say next, that's not true. I don't think I'm better than anyone. That's just your inferiority complex. But when you look at the number of people who voted Leave and Remain, we know that a majority of elderly people voted leave. Okay, we know that a majority of younger people voted remain. And we also know within other demographics, a majority of educated people voted remain. And part of the reason for that is education isn't just learning new facts. You know, when you move on from your GCSEs to A-levels, you don't just learn new facts, A-levels to degree. It's not just more facts. We're not training to win a pub quiz here. You learn more skills as well. And one thing you do with a high level of education is you understand that when someone says that a particular source says a thing, you don't accept it. You go and check it out yourself. And so when people do that, what they find is, oh, it doesn't say what you said after all. You seem to be lying there. And that's the reason. You're not going to fool educated people. You're not going to fool people with, some critical thinking skills. And bear in mind, education doesn't just mean formal education. I've known plenty of people who didn't do education to my level, but they're still as educated as I am because they educated themselves. There's plenty of opportunities, especially these days, to be able to learn and to develop, where some people just decide to sit in front of the telly all day or read The Sun and then make a nice paper hat out of it. Or wipe their arse with it. That's what people used to do. That's what we might have to do again. You know, toilet paper's going to be an issue. People are stockpiling it. They're a bit worried about that. Might have to start using The Sun to wipe our arse. All it's fit for. And might end up with a very inky arse though. But anyway, so this guy completely lied. Then someone else tried doing it in the WTO, and they said, "Oh no, you're wrong at all. If you look at article whatever." So I thought, very nice of this person. I didn't even have to ask them exactly where it was. They've volunteered it, presumably to fool the people who will just straight away look at it. Oh, they're quoting an article. Oh, it must. They can't be lying because it'd be so easy to look it up and verify the lie. So why would someone lie about that? But they know, of course, that there's a healthy number of people who won't go off and look it up. I'll go off and look it up. I looked it up. Had nothing to do with what they were talking about. Nothing at all. In fact, they were trying to explain how this particular article would help us in the event of a no-deal Brexit. And yet this article was talking entirely about the rules for a customs union. Well, if we leave with no deal, we're not in a customs union. Totally irrelevant. But again, it just, they just pick one and tell their lie, quote this thing, and then they're just expecting, as probably happens, a load of people to follow it up. So my advice on that one, if someone says a particular thing, ask for a quote. You can ask it of me, and if I see the comment, I'll put it in. And if I don't, then don't believe me. That's absolutely fine. No problem at all. But especially if someone tries to be clever and quotes a treaty or a piece of legislation, ask specifically where it is. No one wants to read through every single article. It's a lot of work. There's no need for it. They should be able to quote exactly where it is. When they've quoted exactly where it is, go and look it up. Does it say what they say it says? And the answer is very likely to be no. Because it's just a common lie. Because they know most people can't be asked. But be asked. Be asked. So there we go. That hopefully concludes the last few dumb things that Brexiteers say. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, don't forget to give it a like, comment, subscribe and share for further content. Click the bell notification to be notified of the further content. Remember, the poll is still up for the next video. And then the poll after that will actually be for Wednesday, because on Tuesday, I'm likely to be doing a video on what Theresa May says tomorrow. I'm not interested in doing it tomorrow because I don't expect anything earth-shattering. So I'll do that on Tuesday. So the poll is still active for the video that's going to be coming out tomorrow. So until next time, I'll see you later.